Hey guys, so you want to be a dungeon master? Well, you need to create a world and a story for your players to play in. And in this video, I'm going to show you 7 simple things you need to run your very own campaign. Coming up. This is the first of a 2-part series for DMs. This video is about the creation of your world and story. And the second video focuses more on mechanics, the rules, combat, social encounters, exploration, and more. The link for that video will be down in the description and linked at the end. And the 7 things you need are a campaign, some sort of theme and hook to be able to bring to your players that all takes place inside of a world with some sort of villain at work. And all of this ties together to become your plot and your story. Also, I want to get into what your first session looks like and your next session and everyone thereafter. DMing is a huge topic, and each of these points could easily be their own video. So over time, I'll have links to every video down in the description or in a card right here. So let's get into it. These first 2 points are interchangeable based on which one you want to have come first. You have your player's backstory and you have the story of your campaign. They should be intertwined, but we're going to start with the campaign first because that is what's easier for more beginner DMs. Number 1, what is your campaign's theme or hook? What kind of game do you want to run? This is where my first dungeon coach tip comes in, and it's to run a pre-made module. Now, I did not do this myself. I spent 30 hours for weeks building pages and pages of my world that I had to create from scratch. And this is why I'm here, to stop you from doing that and make your lives easier. There's multiple modules out there for you to run, but my recommendation is the starter kit, which you can find for like 15 bucks. It comes with a starter rule kit and an entire pre-made adventure called The Lost Mines of Phandelver. You could run the entire thing from start to finish, or you could just get a feel for this whole DMing thing and then branch off on your own from there. Your other option is to create a brand new campaign yourself and plug your characters' backstories into it. This is called homebrewing. You can get inspiration from your favorite books, games, movies, shows, anything. In the Dungeon Master's Guide, there's some random roll tables on page 73 that you can get inspiration from too. You can also get together with your players and brainstorm on what kind of game you all want to play. But whatever you decide, make sure you pitch this to your players so they know what they're getting into before they create their characters. Which leads me to point number 2, having a session 0 with your players to create their characters. So like I said, I have a session 0 video. It'll be linked down in the description and right here. There's a ton of stuff for you guys to go check out. But some important things to figure out here is how long of a campaign are you gonna have? I'd recommend to keep it simple at first and don't have your first campaign ever be a 2.5-year long campaign like I did again. Don't do that. I had a blast doing it, but if I ran a module or even a shorter story first, I'd get a lot of those first time DM mistakes out of the way and I'd be ready for a super campaign. So the biggest DC coaching tip here is to make sure your players have goals. This is huge for your players to have an initial driving force in the game to understand their motivations and even role play their character better. Because if your players have no goals, are they just along for the ride? What are they even trying to accomplish? And it doesn't even have to be huge or connected to your main story. It feels really bad to me when players feel like they have to play together simply just because they're all sitting around the same table. Their characters need an in-game, in-character reason to all play together, and goals can really help with that. Once you have all these things, it's your job as the DM now to weave all these elements together into your story. Does one of your PCs have a rival in their backstory? Embed them into your world and make them show up where it makes sense. Is one of them from a mining town? Maybe part of your adventure leads them through it. And if they don't give you much, that's fine. These are new players, so that's not going to come easy. Help them brainstorm, but they need a goal. And whatever little thing they give you, just take it and run with it. Number 3 is the world. Now, that sounds really intimidating, but I'm going to show you a really easy way to do it. Some people spend months fleshing out entire continents with intricate histories and pantheons. You can totally do this, but if you do, don't force this on your players. Just because it's important to you doesn't mean it has to be important to them. Let them learn it over time, and if they really are interested in it, release it to them slowly. Just don't force it on them. But all you really need are nearby locations and surrounding towns, mainly from where your PCs are from or where they currently are. I usually make my players a basic map of what they would logically know of their surroundings. And a quick coaching tip for making an entire town is you only need a general idea of it. You need a name, something that makes the town unique, like a popular export, blacksmithing, leatherworking, stagecoaches, something unique about the town. Its general size, its security, and its leadership. An example of a basic town I made would be one of my player characters' hometowns of Darkwell, which main export was livestock of some kind. It was a medium-sized town, and their defenses were pretty minimal, but another cool thing connected to the livestock is they had a cavalry that also protected the city, and their leader was just a mayor named Aldor. I would be able to flesh out more if I needed to, and that's all you really need. In fact, the less you establish now, the more gaps you have to fill in with cool stuff later. So now you have a campaign hook and a world for players to play in. But who are they up against? Number 4, your villain. But who is it? Is it a powerful spellcaster, a corrupted king, a devil in disguise, orc warlord, or is it something more monstrous like a dragon? These are just some questions you should ask. And what about minions? Who serves them? And are they willing? Do they have some elite task force like the 4 horsemen or something that do their bidding? Does he have a second in command that might be trying to overtake him? Or is your main villain just a decoy and the true mastermind still lies in the shadows? And just like your players, the villain needs a goal too. What do they want? And why haven't they got it already? Is there some missing pieces? Is it not the right time yet? Or is there some force stopping them? The template I use for villains looks like this. The villain wants blank, but they can't get it because blank, so they're going to do blank to get it. You fill in those 3 blanks and you'll start to see what your villain looks like. Now your villain isn't going to be sitting in his lair just waiting around. He's going to be acting on the world. So what big or small things is your villain doing to accomplish this goal? And for the beginning of your campaign, you really need to think about those smaller things that your level 1 players could handle and let the weight of those things increase as they level up. And one of my favorite questions to ask is, will your players encounter this villain early on? Or at least their minions, because reoccurring villains are the best kind of villains. Now you have a world, your players are ready and your villain's ready, and how do you connect the two? This is number 5, your plot and story. So this is my definition of plot and story. I think of the plot like the big picture, from the DM's perspective, of what events are going on in the world. And the story is from the player's perspective. Once you have the general idea for your campaign, whether it's a module or homebrew, and you have your player characters' backstories, you take a big step back. And the first place you should start at is the end, and work backwards from there. What are the big things going on? How is this all connected? What are the small things going on that your little level 1 players are going to get all messed up in? Now in a module, a lot of this is done for you, but you still need to skim through it so you can see the big picture of where the plot is going. Overall, you just need to get an idea of what's going on in the world around the players. My biggest DC tip here is ask yourself, what would happen in this world if the players didn't exist? Your world should feel alive and moving. So if there were no players, what would happen? Being able to answer that question helps a ton for being able to figure out what would happen in your world as time passes. And the biggest reason you need to know all of this is for foreshadowing. Foreshadowing is when you warn the players of what's about to happen. So if you don't know what's about to happen, you can't warn them. Now these should be super subtle. Foreshadowing is just hints that shouldn't really make sense to your players because they don't know enough information yet. But once they learn more, it all starts to make sense. And if you do it right, they should get that feeling that I should have seen it coming. And if they are smart enough, maybe they could see it coming, and that's always really cool whenever a player figures it out. Keep in mind with all of this, the difference between writing a story for a book and a story for D&D is in D&D you don't have to have the end of the story already. In fact, it's the player's job to see where they go with it. So that's the world from your perspective, but what about the players? What's their perspective? This is when you need to think about those smaller events that connect to your overall plot. This is where the DM topic of sandbox and railroad comes in. A sandbox is where there's a ton of options for your players to choose from and they can go anywhere they want. And a railroad is when they have one option and that's all they can ever pick. I never railroad as a DM. I don't feel it's in the spirit of the game, but there is some value to it for brand new DMs. It is easier since there's less to prepare for, but as you get more comfortable, really start to open up your world. But a sandbox playstyle doesn't have to be massive. Just a few options go a long way, because not every single thing has to revolve around your main story. In fact, this is also a great time for downtime and side quests. Your world should feel alive and have many different things going on in it that they can choose to interact with if they want, including things that are just pure fun, so they don't feel like they're constantly dragged from one adventure to the next, feeling like they're constantly putting out one fire after the other. Downtime lets your players give a break from the action and get some well-earned rest. There's tons of stuff you can do for this, and that's going to get its own video. Side quests are a great opportunity to take an individual player character's backstory and throw them into the spotlight and have an adventure revolve entirely around them, even if it's just for one session. So I hope I got your brain going with those 5 things and you can really start to see your campaign. Now, number 6 is your first session. How are you going to start? This is something I'm really excited to make a full video about, but here's just a quick list of some ideas you can have to start off your campaign. You could kidnap your players with a surprise ambush right at the start. Or you pick up right after that and they wake up inside a prison and they have to figure out how to escape. You could do what's called a call to arms, and they all have some sort of mission that they have to get behind to be able to do together. They could meet in a tavern, but try not to do this one. And if you do, at least spice it up with some sort of bar fight or a suspicious figure in the background, or there's a fight outside that they have to go check out, something. One of my favorites is a catastrophic event, which is when they're thrown straight into battle right at the start of the campaign. Now this last one's a little different, but if your players are already making their backstories together at the table, then have them also figure out how they know each other already. What adventures have they gone on? What things have they done already? This can be a great way for them to start off the campaign already with some real group chemistry. And final coaching tip here, no matter which way you choose, let your players do their own intro. Let them describe themselves in the way they look when they first step into that spotlight. Now, number 7, what do you need for your next session? Given where they currently are, what things could possibly happen? Where could they go? Who could they meet? What are their immediate goals around them, and how are they going to get there? The 3 main pillars of this game are combat, social encounters, and exploration. I talk about this in more detail in part 2 to this video, but it's good to think about each of these 3 categories in every session. So just like when I told you to take a step back and think about the plot, think about what possible things are you going to throw at your players and what could they possibly do with it. So here's an example from a DM that I helped. All he knew was he wanted his players to start off trying out for a secret guild, and he wanted it to end with them finding some lost magic item. So what would that adventure look like? So here's the plot points of what his adventure looked like in order. So in the tryout for the secret guild, his group of players had to go into a contest against 2 other groups of NPCs. The winner of this contest received a contract, which led them to a person that had information on this lost magic item. They then needed to go find this person and interrogate them to find the location of this item. And once that information was gained, they could find their way to the cave where this magic item was, and they'd fight their way through to get it. Boom, there's your adventure. You got combat, social encounters, and exploration all through that. You have combat in the challenge versus the NPC group to receive the contract. You have exploration to go find the person you need to interrogate. There's a social encounter to actually interrogate that person to try and get the information. More exploration to then go find the cave, and then end with a big finale boss fight of combat to finish it all off. So assuming about 3 or 4 hours of playtime in one session, that adventure I just said probably will take about 3 or 4 sessions to do, which is great to get the big picture, but now what would you need for just one session? 5 quick things for this is already have the maps drawn out beforehand and have the monster stat blocks ready for combat. Have any NPCs they could possibly meet already prepared. Have the map of where they could possibly go during that session. Notes on the expected flow or outline of what you expect the session to be. And any cool potential hooks or branches off from there that they might accidentally run across. And that's it. You have your campaign. Now don't forget to watch part 2 of this video where I actually go over the mechanics of how to run a game. These 2 videos together should really give you an overall picture of what it means to be a dungeon master. I hope you learned something in this video, and if you did, smash that subscribe button and share this video with as many people as you can. It really helps grow our channel. I post videos every Saturday at 9 a.m. Now like I said, I'll eventually have videos for each one of these points in this video, but I love your requests down in the comment section, and that heavily drives my future videos. And if you have any questions or you want help with your campaign ideas, I want to hear that too. So go get creative, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.